The film, based on real events, begins with a medical examination where the protagonist, Mateusz, a person with cerebral palsy, is brought in a wheelchair. His condition is so severe that he cannot speak. The story then shifts to 1987, when Mateusz was a boy. He is seen playing with a doctor, arranging figures in a box according to their shapes. The doctor believes that Mateusz has a mental disability, but his mother strongly disagrees. She believes that Mateusz understands everything and everyone, but the doctor compares him to a dog that wags its tail when it sees food. The doctor suggests that Mateusz should be sent to a special institution where specialists will take care of him, but the mother refuses. At home, she tries to teach Mateusz how to walk, but her daughter and older son do not believe it will be successful. Mateusz crawls on the floor on his back, meeting his father, who plays with him. Desperate, the parents hire a masseur to help their son, but after several sessions, the specialist admits that he cannot help the boy, and even refuses to take money for his last visit. One day, Mateusz's mother walks with him outside, admitting that all her efforts are in vain. But the boy wants to say something to her, and she is forced to guess what he is trying to communicate. The communication barrier upsets her, and in her distressed state, she rolls the wheelchair home. On the way, Mateusz's voiceover explains that he was also upset because he could not communicate with his family. At home, Mateusz's father talks to him, teaching him to knock his fist on the table like a real man. The voiceover states that from that moment on, he decided to learn everything he could. The boy crawls towards his mother, and she ignores her daughter and spends time with him. After lunch, Mateusz sits on the windowsill and observes the lives of his neighbors in the windows of the house across the street. This is how he learns about family socialization. One day, the family receives a package from their uncle in Germany. Among the usual gifts, there is a mysterious hairy egg, a coconut. Father opens it with makeshift tools, while the household watches together. Mateusz learns a lesson in perseverance from this experience. In addition, he observes his mother's guests, who come to try on new dresses. Once, while Mateusz was watching a show about space rockets, his sister Matilda turned off the TV, causing the boy's displeasure. His mother, noticing his nervous movements, turned the program back on, despite the girl's words that her brother does not understand anything. In the meantime, Matilda asks where her hairpin is. Mateusz crawls to the couch, groaning, trying to get attention to the hairpin that rolled under the couch, but without success. The year is 1989. Father shows Mateusz the night sky through the window, telling him about the stars. The hero muses off-screen about what his father does for a living. When the boy grows up, the father makes him a new wheelchair out of improvised materials, a saw and folding bed, and wheels from a cart. Later, celebrating the first democratic elections in Poland and the liberation from the yoke of socialism, the father goes to the store, supposedly for a new door lock. However, he returns home as a true socialist late at night and heavily drunk. Climbing onto the balcony, the father knocks on the window, attracting Mateusz's attention just in time. Poles launch fireworks into the sky in celebration. While the boy watches, the stars exploding, the father falls off the balcony and dies. On the memory of him, the hero has the instruction never to give up. In 1998, the story centers around Mateusz, who, despite growing up, still crawls to the windowsill to admire the stars and his neighbor, a girl named Anka. Anka's mother is very hospitable and invites different men to their apartment every night, while Mateusz's friend Matilda is searching for a husband and brings men over occasionally, much to Mateusz's discomfort. One day, Mateusz's older brother takes him for a walk in the yard and leaves him near Anka, who is sitting on a bench. She notices Mateusz's jerky movements and strikes up a conversation with him. They become friends, with their book discussions on the bench turning into walks on the street. Anka pushes Mateusz in a chair made by his father a long time ago, and they visit the zoo. On the wavy mirrors at the zoo, Mateusz notices bruises on Anka's thighs. Later, while sitting on the windowsill, Mateusz sees Anka defend her mother from another suitor who abuses her. Trying to help, Mateusz drops a flower pot from the window, attempting to hit the suitor. Seeing Mateusz kick at him as he rides by on a bike, the suitor starts to taunt the disabled Mateusz. The local policeman, a former associate of Mateusz's deceased father, hears Mateusz's cries and arrests the suitor when he attacks the policeman. Mateusz sees Anka and her mother packing up to leave through the window. Anka runs over to tell Mateusz that they are leaving to go to her grandmother's house, and that there is no reason for her mother to stay because of the suitor's arrest. While Anka is talking through the door, Matusz crawls to the entrance. They look at each other through the crack at the bottom, and Matusz tries to say something, but only a painful groan comes out of his chest. In the year 2000, Mateusz's brother, who serves in the Navy, comes for a vacation. By that time, Matilda has married, and they all sit together at a table, celebrating the reunion. They discuss how they can all live together in one apartment. Matilda raises the question of what to do with Mateusz. When their mother passes away, she is not keen on taking on the responsibility of caring for a disabled person. Mateusz spends his time sitting on the windowsill, watching life in the courtyard. One day, while trying to put him in his wheelchair, their mother falls on the floor. This incident marks the end of Mateusz's carefree life. His sister and her husband take him to a special medical facility, where many other patients with different disabilities reside. When he arrives in the ward, the locals come to meet him. Mateusz gradually settles into the institution, hoping that his mother will come and take him home eventually. Life in the nursing home goes on, but he cannot fit and he feels out of place. One day, his mother visits him after being discharged from the hospital. She hesitates for a moment before entering the ward to see her son. After spending some time with him, she leaves to catch a train, promising to visit him on Monday. Realizing that he has been abandoned, Mateusz falls into depression despite the staff's care for him. However, the situation changes when a new volunteer girl arrives, and her appearance somewhat calms him. The mother continues to visit him and tell him about the life of his siblings. But despite all of this, Mateusz hates his mother for leaving him here. The excess of emotions even causes him to fall out of his chair. After this incident, he is temporarily placed in a room with soft walls and given a boxing helmet to prevent him from accidentally injuring his head. After it was discovered that Mateusz bites his lips until they bleed while being fed lying down, the doctors tie him to a dental chair and file down his teeth instead of feeding him sitting up. Returning from the procedure, a humiliated Mateusz takes advantage of the fact that the caregiver has left. He rolls his wheelchair towards the stairs and then falls down, remembering his father's words that sometimes, when you can't take it anymore, you need to hit the table with your fist. He falls down the stairs along with his chair, and the screen goes dark. Nevertheless, the suicide attempt fails, and he is taken on a stretcher through the hospital. It is the year 2005. A new volunteer named Magda is brought to Mateusz's and the other patient's room by a caregiver. This is a kind of test so that she can see what she is getting herself into and have time to refuse. Looking at her, the hero thinks that perhaps breasts are not the most important thing in a woman. She takes care of the hero, noticing that he reacts to her words. Once, the girl turns on music in the room and dances, explaining that this is her way of distracting herself from heavy thoughts. A caregiver catches them in the act. Magda says that Mateusz understands what they are saying, but the caregiver is skeptical of her words. During another washing, the hero reacts to an erotic magazine in the hands of a male nurse, which does not escape Magda's attention. On his 25th birthday, Mateusz's mother visits him in the nursing home and brings a cake. When Magda arrives, she asks permission to take Mateusz for a walk outside the facility. Later that night, Magda enters his room and brings him an erotic magazine, expressing her interest in the publication. After confirming his interest, Magda undresses and allows Mateusz to touch her breasts. Later, Magda takes Mateusz to a Christmas dinner at a restaurant with her father, stepmother, and other guests. However, Magda's behavior worsens the atmosphere by introducing Mateusz as her fiancé and kissing him. While the guests look away in embarrassment, Magda offers Mateusz a drink from her glass. Mateusz realizes that her behavior is revenge against her father for remarrying after her mother's death. Feeling used and betrayed, Mateusz falls out of his wheelchair, spilling the glasses on the table. Magda has to take him back to the nursing home. Mateusz sits in his wheelchair and looks out the window when a nurse comes to tell him that Magda quit her job. Apparently, she did what she did for a reason. Realizing that he was used and abandoned, Mateusz listens to music and tries to smile to avoid crying. During another visit, his mother tells him that his brother is still sailing. His sister was left by her husband with 2 children, and about the neighbors. At that moment, the hero breaks down in tears. His mother does not understand the true reason for his distress, but consoles him as best she can. In the spring of 2008, A theatrical performance is arranged for the patients of the sanatorium. During a therapeutic massage, Mateusz notices a woman, Mrs. Yola, who teaches disabled people how to communicate using sign language. While lying on his back, he tries to get her attention in every way possible, and she ends up talking to him and calming him down. The woman develops a communication system based on signs and blinking. Mateusz's progress and reaction surprised the medical staff, who thought he was mentally retarded. Soon, Mrs. Yola invites Mateusz's mother and sister to teach them how to communicate with him. The first thing he says using the table is, "I'm not a vegetable." After that, Mateusz's life changes. He is shown to a medical commission. A dentist replaces his sawn-off teeth with prostheses. He is transferred to an individual ward, which is furnished according to his wishes. The guy receives a motorized wheelchair that he can control himself. The year is now 2010. Mateusz is visited by a journalist named Eva, who wants to write an article about him. He also gets to know the internet and a computer, through which he can communicate with people. His sister brings him home to meet her children and talk to her brother who came on vacation. In the evening, he and his nephew look at the stars through the window, just like he used to do with his father. When his mother visits him again, the staff tells her that the management has read the article about Mateusz, and since he is not mentally retarded, they want to transfer him to another institution. The woman tells her son about it, but he doesn't like the idea of moving to a new place. The film returns to where it started. Mateusz is brought to the commission. However, he does not want to show that he is normal, so he pretends to behave abnormally. Mrs. Yola takes the hero away, but at the very door, he slips off the chair and crawls back to the commission on the floor. After turning over, he stands up on his own, although it is difficult for him, and walks to the table. Mrs. Yola takes Mateusz in the old wheelchair down the corridor of the shelter for mentally retarded people, where he has lived for the past years, and where he will remain. In the next scene, he moves in his room on an automatic chair to the telescope. The film ends with the hero turning his head into the camera and looking the audience straight in the eyes.